Jace had no idea his mouth would almost get him killed that day. He was just walking down the long metal hallway of the space station, carrying a box of tools, trying not to get in anyone's way. The station was busy, full of aliens and humans, working together, fixing ships, moving cargo, and watching their backs. Jace was a simple mechanic. Not a soldier, not a hero, just a man with grease on his hands and bad timing. That's when she walked past him, tall, muscular, armor shining with marks of war, eyes like twin stars, and a sword strapped to her back that looked like it could cut through steel. Jace froze, staring at her in shock. She was the most fearsome alien he had ever seen, one of the Varnak warriors, known for crushing enemies and showing no mercy. He didn't mean to speak, but the words slipped out. "Nice butt," he whispered, just loud enough for disaster. She stopped. The entire hallway fell silent. Everyone turned, some slowly backing away, others covering their mouths in horror. Jace blinked, realizing what he had just said. "Oh no," he muttered, heart pounding. She turned around slowly, her boots echoing on the floor, eyes locked on his face. Her cheeks, were they glowing pink? Was she blushing? She took one long step toward him, then another, until she stood just inches away. Jace looked up, barely reaching her chest, gulped, and gave a nervous smile. "I meant that as a compliment," he said carefully. She didn't speak. Her hand moved faster than his eyes could follow. Slap. The sound echoed through the entire station. Jace flew back, crashing into a pile of metal crates, tools flying everywhere. Pain exploded in his cheek, and he saw stars, maybe even moons. He groaned, laying there in a heap. But she didn't walk away. She stood over him, staring, breathing heavy, her blush still visible. "I should break your bones," she said in a low voice. Jace raised a hand weakly. "I bruise easy." She didn't laugh, but her lips twitched. Just a little. Then, to his shock, she bent down and grabbed him by the collar of his jumpsuit, lifting him up like he weighed nothing. "Come," she said, dragging him away from the growing crowd. Jace didn't even try to fight. "What do you mean, come?" he asked, dizzy. "You spoke without fear," she said. "You interest me." "That's not usually a good thing," he muttered. She threw him into a side room and slammed the door shut, locking it. It was quiet inside, only the sound of her boots and his heartbeat. She stepped closer, her face unreadable. "You said something strange," she said. "Repeat it." Jace rubbed his cheek. "Seriously?" "I just complimented your butt." She tilted her head. "Butt," she repeated like it was a new word. "That means strong backside?" Jace nodded, trying not to pass out. "In my language, yes." She looked thoughtful, then slowly turned around, showing him again what got him slapped in the first place. "You like this?" she asked over her shoulder, voice unsure. Jace blinked, unsure if this was a trick or a second chance to die. "Well," he said carefully, "I respect it." She turned back fast. "Respect it?" she echoed, confused. Jace nodded. "Yes, it's powerful, bold, confident." The warrior stared at him for a long moment, then looked down at herself, as if seeing her body for the first time. "No one has said that to me before," she said, her voice softer. "Most people probably don't want to get slapped," Jace said, wiping his face. She looked guilty for just a moment, then quickly straightened her back, returning to her cold warrior look. "You are human," she said. "Strange. Weak. But amusing." "Thanks, I guess," Jace said, still confused. Then she walked to the door, opened it, and barked an order in her own language. 2 alien guards entered, grabbing Jace by the arms. "Hey, where are we going now?" he asked, struggling. She walked up to him again, leaned down and said, "You belong to me now." Jace's eyes widened. "I think we skipped a few steps." She smiled, just a tiny smile, and said, "You're mine." "Human." Then the guards dragged him down the hallway as everyone stared, whispering. Jace had no idea what just happened. He only knew one thing: her slap still hurt, but something told him This was only the beginning. Jace sat in the corner of her ship, hands tied, brain spinning. It had only been a few hours since she slapped him, blushed at him, and then claimed him like a prize. Now he was her prisoner, or maybe her guest. He couldn't tell. The room wasn't a cell. It was more like a resting chamber. Soft lights, strange glowing plants on the walls, and a strange warmth in the air that made his skin tingle. He tried to move his hands, but the ropes were strong, some kind of alien fiber that didn't loosen. Just then, the door opened with a low hiss. She entered. The same tall alien warrior with cold eyes and a face like carved stone. But this time, she wasn't wearing her full armor, just a dark robe that showed the lines of her body. He swallowed hard, reminding himself not to speak stupidly again. She walked toward him, slow and calm, eyes fixed on his face. "I didn't kill you," she said, as if testing her own voice. "No. You just slapped the life out of me and dragged me off like a bag of potatoes." Jace replied, trying to sound calm. She tilted her head slightly. "You're not afraid. I'm too confused to be afraid," he said. "Why am I here?" She stood in front of him, arms crossed. "You made my heart race," he blinked. "By commenting on your butt?" She nodded slowly. "No one speaks to me that way. Not without shaking or begging first." Jace looked up. "I wasn't trying to insult you. I really thought you looked good." Her lips pressed into a thin line, as if fighting some inner emotion. "I don't understand humans," she said. "You're fragile, small, and loud, but your words affect me." Jace shrugged. "Sometimes a little honesty goes a long way." She moved closer, untied his hands with a small blade, then handed him a strange bowl filled with glowing blue food. "Eat," she ordered. "You'll need your strength." "For what?" Jace asked, eyeing the food suspiciously. She didn't answer, just turned and sat across from him on the floor, watching him eat. It tasted like spicy jelly and metal, but it filled his stomach fast. He cleared his throat. "So, what now?" "You stay here," she said. "You are mine until I say otherwise." "Is that a cultural thing, or just your personal hobby?" Jace asked, half joking. She ignored the question, eyes narrowing. "You are curious," she said. "You look at me like I am not a monster." Jace nodded. "Because you're not," she blinked. "You think I'm soft?" "No," he said quickly. "I think you're strong, but you're also real." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then she did something unexpected, something that made Jace freeze. She leaned closer, face inches from his, and said in a soft voice, "Say it again." He frowned. "Say what?" "The thing that made my chest feel strange," she said, staring into his eyes. Jace blinked, then slowly said, "You have a nice butt." Her eyes widened, her face turned slightly pink again, and she stood up too fast, knocking over a small table. She turned away, shoulders stiff, breathing uneven. Jace didn't dare laugh, but he smiled just a little. She turned back slowly, this time without anger in her eyes. "I should punish you," she said. Voice shaking slightly, he raised his hands. "Please, no more slaps." She stepped closer again, not raising her hand this time, but pointing a sharp claw at his chest. "Tomorrow you will fight," she said. "If you survive, I will decide what to do with you." "Fight who?" he asked, alarmed. She gave a half smile, one that wasn't completely cruel. "Someone who wants to take you from me." Jace's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She turned and walked out, her long hair flowing behind her like a shadow. The door closed, and Jace sat there, heartbeat loud in his ears. He wasn't sure what was happening anymore, captured by a blushing alien warrior, now told he had to fight for his place beside her. All of this because he said she had a nice butt, and somehow he didn't want to escape, not yet. Jace stood in the middle of the training ring, sweat running down his face. The crowd of aliens around him stared with cold eyes, watching, judging, whispering in a language he still didn't understand. He held a wooden training spear in his hands, shaking slightly, trying to look brave. Across from him stood his opponent, twice his size, covered in gray scales, breathing heavy like a bull before a charge. Jace gulped. So, we can talk this out, right? The scaled alien roared, slamming his fists into the ground. The crowd cheered. From the side she watched. Arms crossed, expression unreadable. The warrior who claimed him, the same alien woman who slapped him, blushed. At him, and now made him fight for her. Jace couldn't tell if this was a test or a joke. All he knew was if he lost, he might never wake up again. The horn blew. The fight began. The scaled alien charged like a beast. Roaring, swinging a heavy club, Jace barely rolled away in time. Dirt flying as the ground cracked where he had stood. He scrambled to his feet, holding his spear awkwardly, heart racing. You can do this, he muttered to himself. Just don't die. The alien came again, faster this time, swinging wide. Jace ducked, jabbed forward. The spear bouncing off thick skin like a toothpick. Laughter came from the crowd. He backed away, trying to think, trying not to panic. He wasn't strong, but he was fast. And maybe, just maybe, clever enough to survive. The next time the alien charged, Jace waited until the last second, then dove between the alien's legs. He came up behind him and jabbed the back of his knee, where the skin was thinner. The alien stumbled, surprised, growling in pain. Jace used the moment. Swinging the spear handle into the back of his head, the alien fell to one knee. Roaring, now angry for real, Jace didn't stop. He swung again and again, hitting the weak spots, staying out of reach. Dancing like a fly around a dragon. Blood spilled. Cheers turned louder. Then, finally, the scaled alien collapsed, groaning, unable to get up. Jace dropped his spear and dropped to his knees, breathing hard. He didn't even hear the horn blow, signaling victory. All he could hear was his own heartbeat and the pounding of boots as she walked toward him. She stopped in front of him, looked down at the bruises on his arms, and said, "You survived." "Barely," he gasped. "Please tell me I don't have to fight again tomorrow." She extended a hand, and for a second he thought she was going to slap him again, but instead, she helped him up, holding his arm gently. The crowd went quiet as she turned to face them, holding Jace's wrist high in the air. "This human is mine," she declared, her voice powerful, echoing. "No one will touch him unless they want to challenge me." Gasps spread through the ring. Jace blinked, still dizzy. Wait, was that some kind of alien love confession? She didn't answer, just pulled him close, whispering in his ear, "You made me proud." He blushed this time, which made her smile wider. She took him back to her ship, this time not dragging him, but walking beside him like an equal inside. She gave him food, fresh clothes, and something like ointment for his wounds. As he sat down to rest, she stayed close, watching him quietly. "You fought like a true warrior," she said, clever and quick. "I fought like a scared rat." Jace replied, "But thanks." She moved closer, sitting beside him. Not touching, but close enough he could feel her body heat. "In my culture," she said slowly, "to protect someone is to show interest." Jace turned his head, and dragging someone into a fight to the death? She looked at him seriously. That was also interest. He let out a tired laugh. "Aliens are intense." She nodded. "We don't play with feelings." There was a long pause, quiet and heavy. Then she asked, "Why did you say I had a nice butt?" Jace nearly choked. "Again with the butt?" "It matters to me," she said. "I want to understand why you saw me differently than others." He looked at her for a moment, then smiled. "Because you looked confident, strong, and honestly beautiful." Her eyes widened just slightly, and she turned her head away this time. She didn't slap him. She just sat beside him in silence, cheeks glowing once again. Jace leaned back, closed his eyes and whispered, "Weirdest day of my life." And somehow it wasn't even over yet. The alarm blared through the ship like a scream. Jace jumped from his bedroll, nearly hitting his head on the low ceiling. Outside the door, heavy boots slammed against the metal floor. Voices shouted in the alien tongue he still didn't understand. Before he could grab his boots, The door slid open, and she stood there taller than ever in full battle armor, glowing eyes and a sword already drawn. "Come with me," she said, not waiting for an answer. He followed barefoot, running through smoky halls and flashing lights. "What's going on?" he asked, heart pounding. "Someone challenged me," she said without looking back. "A rival warrior claims I've gone soft," Jace frowned. "Because of me." She stopped at a lift, turned, and looked at him. "He says claiming you is weakness," she said. "He believes I've lost my edge." Jace's stomach dropped. "And now he wants to fight?" She nodded once, calm and cold. But not just any fight. The lift opened to a large round arena at the ship's top deck, made of black steel and echoing with the sound of hundreds of voices. Warriors from other ships stood in rings, shouting, pounding weapons against the ground. In the center stood a beast of a man-thick shoulders, long horns and scars down his arms like fire lines. Jay stayed close behind her, trying to shrink into the crowd. The horned warrior laughed when he saw them, pointing at Jace. "This is the soft creature you protect?" he shouted. "He's your shame." The crowd laughed. Jace wanted to disappear. She stepped into the ring without fear, her blade humming with power. "If I defeat you, you will not speak his name again," she said. The horned warrior grinned. "And if I win?" "You won't," she answered. They moved like lightning, blades crashing, sparks flying. The fight was nothing like the one Jace had been in. This was real, raw, brutal. She spun, ducked, blocked, struck, her body moving like it remembered 1,000 wars. He was stronger, but she was faster, smarter, more focused still. She took a hit, blood spilled from her side. Jace shouted without thinking, "Get up!" She did, breathing hard, and with one final scream, she slammed the hilt of her blade into the horned warrior's throat, then drove her fist into his chest. He dropped with a thud that shook the deck. Silence followed, then a loud cheer. She turned toward Jace, still bleeding, still burning with battle fire, and held out her hand. He stepped into the ring, unsure, awkward, but drawn to her strength. She leaned in close and said softly, "You watched me. I couldn't look away," he whispered back. The crowd faded. The noise faded. Everything shrank except her eyes and his heartbeat. She raised his hand like before, but this time she whispered something in her language as the warriors around them knelt. Later, back in her quarters, she stitched her own wound while Jace sat nearby holding a cloth soaked in medicine. "You didn't have to fight for me," he said, voice quiet. "I did," she replied, not looking up. "In my world, bonds must be proven." He placed the cloth gently against her cut. "I didn't ask for that bond, but you earned it," she said, then added. Without even knowing, he sat beside her as the ship floated. In silence, surrounded by stars, he looked at her hands so strong in battle, now steady as they touched his wrist. "You feel different," she said, "not weak. Just soft in ways we are not. Is that good or bad?" He asked. She didn't answer for a moment, then whispered, "It makes me curious." Jace leaned against the wall, too tired to think straight. "You blush less now," he said, teasing. She looked at him, and to his surprise, her face turned pink again. "Your voice still causes trouble," she said, "and your slap still echoes in my dreams," he said, half laughing. Half terrified, she smiled, slow and dangerous, but softer than before. This time, she didn't hit him, didn't drag him, didn't threaten. She just sat there, wounded, proud, and quiet beside him. And that silence felt warmer than any victory. Cheer. Jace looked out at the stars and thought to himself, this wasn't just a mistake anymore. Something real was happening here. Jace sat by the window of her ship, staring out at the stars. He thought space would be lonely, quiet, endless. But next to her, it never felt silent. Even when she wasn't speaking, her presence filled the room, strong and steady like gravity. She stood nearby, sharpening her blade, each scrape slow and smooth. Her side still had a fresh scar from the last fight, but she acted like it didn't bother her. She hadn't spoken in hours. He cleared his throat, breaking the stillness. So, do you always fight for people you barely know? She looked at him, not stopping her movement. Only when something inside me says they matter. His heart skipped, but he forced a small laugh. I must be really lucky then. She finally set the blade down and turned to face him fully. You talk strange, she said. Your words hide your fear, but also your truth. Jay stood up, slowly walking over. I'm not afraid of you anymore. She raised an eyebrow. Even after I slapped you? He smiled. I've taken worse from malfunctioning engines. She didn't laugh, but the corners of her lips curved, just a little. I don't understand humans, she said again. You're fragile but stubborn, small but loud, and you're terrifying but weirdly sweet when you blush, he replied. Her eyes narrowed like she might slap him again, but instead she looked away, cheeks warming. He stepped closer, watching her closely. You never told me your name, she stayed. Silent. Then spoke low. Jaira, Jace repeated it, testing the sound on his tongue. Jaira. She seemed surprised he said it right the first time. You remember it, she said, like it meant something important. I remember everything about you, he said without thinking. Her eyes locked onto his, and suddenly the air felt heavier. You said once that love is soft, she said, but in my world, love is a battle. Jace took a breath. Then maybe I'm already fighting. She didn't blink, didn't move, just stood still as a statue outside the window. Stars drifted by slowly, as if time had slowed down just for this moment. Tell me more, she said, voice almost a whisper. Tell me about your world. So he did. He spoke of Earth, of oceans that danced under the sun, of music that played without meaning but still moved hearts. He spoke of laughter, of late nights with friends, of mothers who hugged and fathers who stayed strong even when scared. And she listened, eyes never leaving him. When he finished, there was a silence that felt full instead of empty. You make your world sound like a dream, she said. Sometimes it is, he replied. Sometimes it's not. She stepped closer, so close he could feel her breath. Would you go back if I let you? She asked. He hesitated. I don't know. You're my responsibility now, she said softly. But I don't want you to stay if your heart is still looking elsewhere. He looked at her carefully. What if my heart has already chosen? Her eyes widened slightly, and her hand brushed his shoulder, slow and unsure. Your voice. It keeps pulling me closer, she said. Even when I try to resist, he smiled. Then stop resisting. She stepped back as if unsure. I've broken ships, led armies, crushed beasts twice my size. But you're scared of me? Jace asked. I'm scared of what you make me feel, she said. That's when the warning bell rang again, louder, more urgent. A voice echoed across the ship, saying words in her language that made her eyes sharpen instantly. What is it? Jace asked. She reached for her blade, strapping it tight. My people, she said. They've sent for me. A new mission, one that may keep me from you. He stood up fast. What kind of mission? She looked at him, something like pain in her eyes, a test of loyalty. And I must leave now. Jace stared at her, stunned. She stepped forward and placed something in his hand, a small pendant glowing with soft red light. If I return, and you still want to be mine, wear this, she said. And if I don't? He asked quietly. She leaned close, touched his forehead with hers, and whispered, Then you will be free. Then she turned, armor shining like moonlight, and walked out without looking back. Jace stood in the quiet room, staring at the door, holding the pendant like it was the last piece of her he had left. He didn't know how long she'd be gone, or if she'd ever come back, but he already knew one thing. He wasn't going anywhere. The room smelled like metal and fire, but Jace didn't mind anymore. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, watching her pace like a caged beast. Jira hadn't spoken in minutes, but her eyes told a story. They kept flicking to him, then away, like she was trying to hide something behind her usual cold stare. You're wearing a groove in the floor, Jace said softly. She stopped, turned her head slightly, but didn't answer. There was something different about her tonight, not just her silence, not just her movements, it was the way she kept touching. Her wrist like it itched, the way her breathing was too steady, too forced. He stood up, walked over slowly, not wanting to startle her. "You're nervous," he said, half expecting another slap. "I am not," she answered too fast. He tilted his head. "Jira, what's going on?" She looked at him fully now, eyes brighter than usual, but her voice was low, controlled. "My body is changing," she said. "It is part of my species cycle." Jace blinked. "You mean like a transformation or something?" Her jaw tightened. "No, not that." He waited, letting the silence fill the space. Finally she stepped closer, close enough he could feel the tension rolling off her. "It's called Cathin," she said slowly. "Every few cycles we become sensitive to certain scents, sounds, touches." Jace swallowed hard. "Are you saying I triggered it?" She stared at him like he was fire, and she wasn't sure whether to run or reach for it. "You said things no warrior ever dared say to me," she whispered. "And now, when you're near, my skin reacts." He stepped back slightly, unsure. "Is that dangerous?" She moved with him, closing the space again. "Only if I lose control." Jace raised both hands, trying to stay calm. "Look, I didn't mean to start some kind of alien heat wave." Jira exhaled slowly. "I have trained all my life to fight armies, not this." He tried to smile. "I have a history of causing trouble without trying." She turned away, gripping the edge of the table with enough force to bend it. "You confuse me," she said. "One moment I want to crush you for making me feel weak, the next I want to keep you close." He took a breath, choosing his next words carefully. "Maybe I'm not making you weak," he said. "Maybe I'm just helping you see a different kind of strength." She didn't answer, but her shoulders relaxed slightly. He reached out, gently touched her arm, surprised she didn't pull away. Her skin felt warm, even through the fabric of her armor. She looked down at his hand like it was a weapon she couldn't understand. "This is not how my people bond," she said. "We fight, we challenge, we take. And humans. We talk, we share, we hold hands," Jay said, smiling softly. She looked at his hand again, then slowly placed hers over it. Large and firm and trembling just a little. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The ship hummed quietly. The stars moved. "Outside the window, are you afraid of this?" she asked, not moving her hand. "I'm more afraid of what happens if we ignore it," he replied. She gave a slow nod, as if making a choice inside her heart. Then she stepped back and said, "Tomorrow." "I must leave." Jace froze. "Leave where?" "To my homeworld," she said. "They summoned me." A final test of loyalty. He tried to keep his voice steady. "How long will you be gone?" "I do not know," she said. "But I will return, if I am allowed to." Jace laughed nervously. "Allowed? What kind of place is this?" She looked down, a place where feelings like this are forbidden. He stared at her, the truth sinking in. She was risking more than he thought. Just by feeling something for him, he stepped closer. "Then don't say anything, just come back." She nodded once, then pulled a small crystal from her belt and pressed it into his hand. "If it glows, it means I'm alive," she said. "And thinking of you." He looked at the crystal, then at her. "And if it doesn't glow?" She hesitated, voice softer than ever. "Then I am gone." Jace felt a lump in his throat. "Come back, Jura." She stepped forward suddenly, grabbed the back of his neck, and pressed her forehead to his. "I will try," she whispered, then. She turned, armor clicking, and walked out into the light. The door closed behind her, and the silence felt heavier than any battle. Jace stood there, alone with the crystal, and he waited. The crystal pulsed red, slow and steady like a heartbeat. Jace held it tight in his palm, sitting alone in the ship's quiet quarters. Days had passed. Maybe weeks. He'd stopped counting. All he knew was that it still glowed, and that meant she was alive. He had cleaned the blade she left behind, memorized every word she said, and replayed her whisper, "I will try," 1,000 times in his mind. But tonight felt different. The air inside the ship felt heavy, still, like something was about to break. Then the lights flickered once, then again, a low alarm hummed through the hull. But no one else was aboard to respond. Jay stood, stepping toward the window, when suddenly he saw her ship approaching. Sharp, fast, wounded, his heart leapt, then dropped when he saw the smoke trailing behind it. He ran to the docking gate, feet moving faster than thoughts. When the ramp lowered, sparks poured out first, then the sound of boots slow. Heavy, dragging, Jira appeared, limping, armor cracked, one arm clutched tight to her chest. Jace didn't wait. He rushed forward, catching her just as her knees gave out. "You came back," he said, voice shaking. She looked up at him, blood running down her temple. "Of course I did." He carried her inside, laid her gently on the bed, grabbed the medical kit she once used on him. "I'm not good at this," he said, trying to clean the wound, hands shaking. "But I'll try," she smiled, weak but proud. "You're learning." Once the bleeding stopped, and the fire in her eyes began to return, she spoke again. "They tried to erase what I felt for you," she said. "Tried to break me." Jace clenched his fists. "Who?" "My commanders," she said. "They called it a sickness. Said you were a distraction." He sat beside her. "What did you say?" She looked at him, her voice low but full of fire. "I said no one decides who I care for except me." He couldn't help it. He reached out and took her hand, to his surprise. She didn't pull away. Instead, she pulled him closer, resting her forehead against his once more. "This is how we mark our bond," she whispered. "You're not just mine now, I'm yours." Jace's chest felt tight, like something deep inside had just been written in stone. "I waited," he said. "Even when it hurt, I fought," she replied. "Even when I was afraid." Silence held them for a moment, deep and full. Then she touched the crystal still, glowing in his pocket. "It stayed bright the whole time," she said, surprised. "Because you never left my mind," he said. For the first time her eyes softened completely. No walls, no armor, no war. Just her. She leaned forward. And this time, there was no slap, only a kiss, gentle and new, filled with quiet understanding. Jace closed his eyes, letting everything else fall away. The war, the fear, the confusion, it didn't matter now. She came back, and she chose him. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "You said my body was strong, my form proud, but now I ask, do you see my heart too?" Jace nodded, voice low. "I see all of you, Jira," she smiled, the kind of smile no warrior had likely ever dared show. Then she stood, pain still in her step, but strength returning to her bones. "We have a new path now," she said. "Together." He walked beside her as she powered up the ship again. As the engines roared to life, he glanced at her and said, "By the way, it's still a nice butt." She paused, then looked over her shoulder, eyes sharp, lips curled. "No more slaps," she warned. "Next time, it'll be a bite." Jace laughed and held onto the wall. "I think I can live with that." As the ship rose into the stars, two souls from different worlds stood side by side, no longer warrior and captive, no longer alien and human, but something deeper, something chosen, something worth every bruise. And somewhere in the silent dark, their story kept glowing, just like the crystal in his pocket.